Is it hard?
That's why I told you I need that.
Hey guys, sorry, we're going to start again a little bit late for our speakers to arrive.
How are you?
Oh, yeah. Like your class, like an all around Okay, right.
I'm well. They're getting ready to start here in a few minutes.
You know, he's one's coming to.
Yeah, he's upstairs. He's coming. He'll be coming. He's got an office upstairs. Yeah, we got a little office up there. I'm still working from home most of the time because I have these toddlers. And, it's either work from home or pay half my wages and stuff.
Yeah. You know, it's ridiculous.
I've heard about well, you guys, I need you guys.
We're gonna try to get started. You can still get clear and quiet up there. Hear me. All right, thank you guys. Thank you all for being here tonight. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bud Scott. I'm the founder and director of the Oklahoma Cannabis Industry Association, the state's oldest and largest trade association for the cannabis industry that raised $1 million from the campaign, ran our old offices that burned down back in October of 2020. So this is our new space. So welcome to our first event here at the Crew Workspace. We're incredibly excited to be here. Very thankful that they welcomed us here along with several of our compatriots, including one of our board members, Lawrence Casual of Greenboro CPAs. The office is upstairs as well. If anyone's looking for some incredible office space, check it out. I mean, the whole upstairs of this building is amazing. Individual offices, conference rooms, small meeting rooms. Check it out. Then we get access to this other room right over here. So we're very fortunate to be here. We'll be doing our policy and pints here from now on out, largely because we've been hosting them since 2018 in bars and restaurants. And I'm just sick and tired of having like a waiter walk in front of me as I'm presenting to everyone, or guys like carrying kegs. Like, wait a minute, man. Oh, we're having a presentation here. So thank you guys for coming. You know, we're really excited about kind of this next transition. Turn my phone off too. Everyone, please turn your phones off. So we're excited about this next stage. You know, we've been around since 2017. Before the election for 788. Since that time, we've maintained on average about 500 members, largely licensees, all here in Oklahoma, but also typically we're about 25-35% of service professionals. So graphic designers, lawyers, accountants, engineers, folks that help and touch our industry in one way or another. So you know, we're at a point now, we're 4 years in this organization that I'm proud to announce that you know our board has really come together. It's an elected board from our membership, and we just put on what I would consider to be one of the best cannabis summits that I've ever been to. I've been in the industry for 15 years. And thank you. There's several folks here tonight that were sponsors, that were attendees. I know I'm going to forget someone, so I really don't want to go through all of them, but name a few. Julian Mike Draka, Relief Laboratories. Also our board of directors. Blake Cantrell, Peak Dispensaries. Where's Jacob Vance, Seaworthy Strategies. They handle all of our higher testing. Where you guys have from Roland? Right. There you are. So, Ian and Haley? Darian. Ian and Darian. They came all the way over from Roland, Oklahoma tonight. So I want to say thank you for making the effort to come and be a part of learning about your industry and standing up and fighting for your industry. Yeah. Because that's what this is all about, guys. Am I forgetting anyone else for some more sponsors? I'm kind of like eyeing the crowd here. Please don't be mad at me. Mayor Protect Dan, I'm sorry, brother.
That's all right.
Of course, Lawrence Casual, Greenboro CPAs. Who also maintains his offices here. And his brother. So, but we've got a really solid team together. And what all these folks, Cambry White, by the way, let me point you out as well. Cambry White, we're quite collective. She's the vice president of our board of directors. They were instrumental in bringing in a lot of fantastic attendees and sponsors to our summit as well. So Ms. Cambry. So just want to point out for those of you that have never been to one of our events, that are new to this, the whole reason we put this organization together in 2017 is because I've been working with the cannabis industry in Colorado primarily, Washington, and Oregon, but always based in Oklahoma. And what I saw in those other states is that it took 3 to 10 years for any actual coordinated movement to occur and on behalf of the industry. You would usually have 4 or 5 companies that would hire their own lobbyists, push for their own issues, while everyone else just kind of got left to their own devices. So from day one, we tried to make this an opportunity for those who want to be engaged, for those who care enough to stand up for their businesses, to get engaged, to lobby, to interact with policymakers at the local, state, and federal level. And those who have participated in this, I think, would all agree that we've had an astounding degree of influence and connectivity. We've had 4 people appointed to the Food Safety Standards Board, which is the only advisory board to the OMA. Has no rulemaking authority, but it is the only public body that allows us to provide feedback to the OMA. And a lot of this happened during a very critical period of 3 years. The first 3 years of this program, when they wanted to shut this thing down from the beginning. And myself and Becky Johnson, who used to be on our board, we were on that board and just did our best to keep them from doing some really bad stuff. And now we have Blake Cantrell, on the board as well. Mike Urban, who's also on our board of directors with Oklahoma Producers, Oklahoma Pure, I know their products. He's on the advisory board now as well. So we're very fortunate to have them in that capacity. And then there's several folks here from other entities that the OMA just formed a growers committee to get feedback from growers directly on testing regulations, on practices and protocols. And I know that Mosaic, you guys grow resident cultivation. Your grower, we got appointed to that. We got 6 different people appointed to that board where they can have direct insight and provide direct feedback. And that's what this is all about. It's about us educating those who don't know anything about it and us standing up for our businesses. Because if you don't do it, no one's going to. It's up to you. It's your business. And everyone needs to treat advocacy efforts like a line item, just like you would treat security, just like you would treat your CO2 or your ethanol or your propane. You have to treat it like a legitimate business expense, just like every other industry in the world does. And for some reason in cannabis, people think they get a blank check on this, that they don't have to participate. They think they can listen to people online who don't usually know what they're talking about. They think they can listen to them for free and not participate or contribute. And I just have to tell you, it didn't work that way. I've been doing this for free for the last 2 years, free. My board just took the courageous step to actually step up and agree to pay my sorry ass. And that comes on the heels of us putting together what I thought. Again, I'm going to return to this summit that we hosted. Shangri-La Resorts in Grand Lake really rolled out the red carpet for us. We had a phenomenal, super ambitious 3-day event with the golf tournament. Probably should have been 1 day, maybe 2, especially for those who started drinking on the first night. But it turned out to be a hell of a deal. We had the head of the OMA, we had the head of the Bureau of Narcotics, we had the state fire marshal, we had the state labor commissioner, we had Metric there doing free consultations for everybody. Every licensee, anyone who was attending could sign up, and some people talked to them for 30 minutes. Some people talked to them for like 2 hours. That was there, that was provided. We had legal folks branding, graphic design people, accountants, all offering free consultations to everyone who attended. And from the feedback that we got both from our sponsors, from our attendees, was that it was one of the most robust events they'd ever been to. The folks from Weedmaps, which is anyone from Weedmaps here anymore? No? So I've been working with their government relations team out of DC for a while. And one of their guys straight up said, there is nothing like this in the country. The access that we have, the relationships that we've built, those relationships, let me hammer on this. Those relationships are built on trust, civility, and professionalism. It's not backroom dealing. It's not cutting big checks. It's not being an asshole. That's what it is. And I think we all know what I'm talking about here. There's a lot here about building those relationships. And I've spent 15 years building those relationships here in Oklahoma. And so people trust us. They want to hear our feedback. They offer us to come in and have meetings with them. But we behave ourselves like professionals. And we encourage and welcome all of you to do the same thing. And we hope that you will reach out to as many other folks in the industry that you're doing business with to come in and be a part of that too. Because we're only going to do it together. This isn't one person. It's not a cult of personality. It's not a savior complex. Some other folks that we see. It's everybody standing up and doing their part for their own business and for their industry. So I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. This is, for those of you who've never been to one of these, we do these every month. Have since 2018. Policy and Pints, where typically some people take the Pints a little more serious than the policy. Myself included sometimes. But tonight, what we usually do is we welcome guests that are, we've had the Oklahoma Bay management team, we've had every Oklahoma Bay director, all four of them. We've had the commissioners of health, the directors of the health department, Bureau of Narcotics, local planning directors, fire marshals, state and local legislators. They come in and we get to have direct feedback and conversations with them. They hear from you. We sit and talk about these issues, but then you have the opportunity to speak directly to them and share some of your feedback and ask questions. Now, tonight we don't have one of those guests. We have two of our board members, Ms. Kimberly White, Mr. Blake Cantrell, that are going to be speaking on some of our implementing rules and statutory developments. But for the future, when you come to our next policy conference, and we have one of our government representatives, I'm just going to encourage you to come participate. Take advantage of these programs that we put out there for everybody. Come and do it. It's there for you, man. This is why we're doing it. You have to ask those questions, though. Just know when you ask those questions, don't be like, so I submitted my license 3 months ago, and can you look my stuff up right now in front of everybody? Like, you know, it's generally more of a general thing, but it allows you to develop that one-on-one relationship with those folks. So when you do have that question, I guarantee you they're going to pull their card out and they're going to say, you know what, give me a call. Here's my email, send me an email. And that allows you to follow up on your specific issue that's not really appropriate to talk about in front of sometimes several other people. So thank you guys for taking a step coming out tonight. It's an honor to work with and on behalf of all of you who've been doing this for a long time. I'm excited about the direction we're going in. Before we get into our program, I want to hit on one serious issue. The last 2 years of the Oklahoma legislature, the cannabis industry has really had a difficult time. We'll just say that. We've got our asses kicked to them. And you know why that is? It's because we don't have a unified presence that's consistently engaged. And these legislators, what they hear from their constituents in the local districts. They hear from old Grandma Jones, who's like, God, you know, I just don't like those 3 or 4 dispensaries that have shown up in our small town. Where they go, those Chinese. I think we've all heard that, right? Those Chinese. That's the big thing, right? That's what they're hearing. I think that it is incumbent upon us. We're not going to be able to change anything in the legislature until we change the public image of our industry. And I've done this in other statewide campaigns. I think we're going to have folks really contribute to support a public relations campaign. This ain't going to be cheap, guys. This is a $500,000 initiative. This is the kind of thing that is necessary, though, to move the needle in our industry that tells the story of the 12,000 plus businesses that have jumped into Oklahoma in this industry. of the thousands of other businesses that touch this industry but don't have a license. Telling those stories through videos, through commercials, that is the essential step here. It's where we have to go. And if we do not move the needle on this front, by telling the stories of all the massive successes, from small businesses where, man, I can't tell you, some of the best ganja I've smoked in the last few years has been that guy that got laid off as a field operator in the oil and gas industry. And he had a 1,500 square foot shop building out back. And he's a smart dude. He knows how to build pumps. He knows how to build everything out of whatever he can find in his yard. And he puts together a badass grow operation. He's putting out some of the best stuff I've ever seen. So telling those stories, to telling the stories of the reverse brain drain that we're witnessing in Oklahoma that we've never seen before. We have seen a larger inflow of migration in Oklahoma. It's the largest one since the land rush. Of talented people coming and stampeding. That's the story that has been told. And as a little aside, that's got to get us past this whole like in-state, out-of-state BS. Come on, guys, we're part of a national and international industry here. If we want to be ready to take that next step and be legitimate, it's not about your small mom and pops getting crushed by these guys. Everyone's going to play a role, and there's room for everyone. So you're either there or you're not. We got to get past it. So tell us that story. I'm talking like drone footage of farmers out there in the field doing their thing. Right now, is the perfect time. Anyone wants some drone footage shot when they're doing their harvest outdoor? Because this is the perfect time to be doing it. And put this together, tell that story about our lab directors, about the incredibly talented engineers that have moved here to Oklahoma to work on processing facilities. That's the story we have to tell. And we also got to tell the story of the mayors of these small towns that are going, you know what, our town was boarded up and dried up and blown away. And now there's 50 new businesses here. There's stores and previously vacant storefronts that have been vacant for 20 years. These are the stories we got to tell. If we don't do this right now, I'm afraid to say it doesn't really matter what we're doing yet. We have to shift this narrative. So that's what I ask each one of you is to think about participating in this, think about supporting it, or being a participant in the videos, about recognizing and recruiting people to come in and help support it. Those who have the money, please do it, because otherwise it doesn't happen. So that's my big push here. Otherwise, we'll continue working on our legislative stuff. Hey guys, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, it's super echoey here. So we're learning lessons. It's the first time we do something here, so we're not going to have talkers in the back. It's too loud. So tonight, our agenda is primarily going to be Ms. Cameron White. She's an attorney, very talented, with Overman Legal Group and Client Collective here in Oklahoma City. They're the firm that I refer pretty much all my legal business to. People come to me. She's been a stellar rock star, is poised to do some incredible stuff in this industry. She's the vice president of our board. She's going to speak tonight about some of the impending changes occurring November 1st that are resulting from House Bill 2646, which was adopted during the legislative session this year. And then Mr. Blake Cantrell, who is the president of our board with the Peak Dispensaries and the Supply, he is on the current OCIA advisory board. It's still called the Food Safety Standards Board for some reason, but it's the advisory board. He's going to talk a little bit about some of the rules. I'm going to let them just kind of go back and forth a little bit, and I'll stand on the side for support if you need me. Just let me know. So, guys, give them a round of applause. You want to pull these up? Cheers.
Quite a lot to go over. Talk louder, please.
We know you attorneys will shout when you need to.
Oh, yeah.
I guess she's a mom.
It's not mine.
Yeah. If anybody has like questions throughout, because I know there's so much that's changing right now in the reverse, like just don't be afraid to interrupt one of us as we go through it. I feel like if I wait for potential questions at the very end, we'll go over so much that you're complicated in all situations. Okay, so House Bill 2464 I'm sorry, 2646, that's the one that is going to be effective November 1st. So I know you guys have probably seen a lot of things on Facebook, heard a lot about the changes. Most of all, so I'm going to go through like the changes for the actual House bill, but I will say that it gives authority in the new emergency rules that haven't been codified yet. They will become effective the same day that this becomes effective. But basically, it gives the authority the ability to create actual regulations that are not lined out yet in 2646. So if you don't understand something in 2646, it might be because it's explained later in the emergency rules. So bear with me on that. So first, dispensaries and growers are going to be able to package and sell their own pre-rolled joints. So that's a good positive for the industry. You're not going to have a processing license to do that anymore. The caveat there is that you can only do that so long as it's 1 gram or below, and it also can't be infused with anything. So any type of infused pre-rolls or pre-rolls weighing more than 1 gram have to be done still by a processor license.
The question of whether that's including or excluding any packaging, I'm going to try to clarify at the next meeting. That's next Wednesday.
Yeah, that's a great point. Also, so deli style, that was a big one that there for a while they were trying to actually get rid of deli style, I believe, in direct response to COVID. But what they've done is they're still going to allow like what I call sort of a piecemeal, pared down version, if you will, of deli style. They will still allow you to have samples. The customer can't interact with, the samples that customers interact with cannot then be sold. So basically, as long as you've got sort of just your samples that you can hand over, you can smell it, you can look at it, you just can't sell it. You have to wait those out at the end of the it's going to bifurcate processing licenses. I think this will be pretty helpful if your COTs in smaller rural areas that are kind of getting free. If you're only doing light processing,
Somebody making margaritas?
yes, so they're going to bifurcate the processing licenses. You'll have a light or a non-hazardous processing license, and you'll have a hazardous processing license. Later on in the emergency rules, they clarify that I think they actually might, when I say they, the authorities might actually require you to submit a list of chemicals that you're going to be using, and then they'll be able to determine whether or not you're volatile or you're not volatile, or hazardous or not hazardous.
So that will determine whether you need C1D1 or not need C1D1.
Correct. So if you're hazardous, so you'll submit for the hazardous, well, if you're going to be doing C1D1 for something that requires C1D1, yes. So you would submit to OMMA. They now have the authority under the emergency rules to require you to submit a list of chemicals. I don't know, obviously it's not under emergency. I don't know whether that is already built into the compliance system, they're waiting to launch it, or whether or not that might happen at all. I'm just telling you, they do have the authority to ask.
To the best of my knowledge, they've not yet outlined a path.
So the definition is what you do.
There is. So they have.
There's a definition, there's not a path yet to submit your list of.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've not seen any sort of like prototype software change or update that would allow for this. I'm just letting you know the law now gives them the authority to request it. Okay, then the processing facilities will be subject to random inspections up to 2 times per year from OMA. You will be required to submit certain information as part of your OMA license. It's not limited to basically like square foot, how many lights you have if you're a grower, what percentage of your building is, if you have like a co-located license, what percentage are you using to actually do production versus growing or one of those things. Also employee handbooks and SOPs. So those will also potentially, again, you've not seen compliant updated with this, but you might have to submit all of that.
That's a big one that can easily get overlooked. If any of you don't already have SOPs, standard operating procedures in writing, I highly recommend going about that sooner than later. And you can even go online and buy like prefab, SOPs effectively for cannabis operations, and then you can just tailor them to your needs. I don't know what they cost or who provides them, but
Which they have not defined SOPs yet, so.
Yeah, this is another one of those things that's coming, but they've not really clarified in what form.
And to add to that, on November 1st, the SOPs and the employee handbooks, I believe those are also going to be added to the actual records that every licensee must keep on premise.
Similar to you having to do your operating agreements.
So you've got to have something in place by November 1st, even if it's just like.
Is there an employee like number? Is there like an employee number that triggers that?
No.
No, it's for all
It's
licenses.
a required license.
One down barn.
Every
Doesn't matter how many employees.
Yes.
If you're a no licensed business.
Yes.
But they also, but to be clear, they also don't define.
They don't define.
what handbook or SOP means. So as long as you got something in writing, you'll be all right.
Which, by the way, during our summit, the Labor Commission and Labor Department was there, and they were offering to do free, like, employee, kind of employment, manuals, and they'll have to do a free on-site, visits, and help you develop your own practices. Basically, they state that OSHA compliance, and they wanted to make sure everyone understood they will not like park you out to an OSHA. They're a state agency, but they do this for free. So anyone who is interested, let us know. We'll email you their information. They asked for, they got 5 people from our summit to come do kind of like pilot studies with. They will come to your facility and help outline and build this with you.
Transfer.
The Labor Department? Yeah.
I was kind of speaking towards the room alone. The employee handbook is, it's kind of crazy, but it's fucking badass. You kind of have your guidelines, you have to go, you have your team read over it, and then it protects all of you business owners. I'm Pat, by the way, Apartment Farms, we're a small growth also. But, it's really cool to have these things going on. They protect you.
It's good business practice, even if
It's a very large handbook. And, like you said, a lot of these things you can generate them, kind of whatever. You go through, you can narrow it down.
Is anybody unfamiliar with what might be included in an employee handbook? Or are y'all pretty comfortable with that?
It protects you from a lot of stuff.
Yeah. You're gonna want to have like emergency protocols, for example, is a way that's gonna help protect you, what to do in case of a fire, tornado, robbery. If you don't have those things in writing, no one knows what to do, number one, and number two, that could, expose your business to liability.
Insurance providers will also provide
Yes.
you with this template.
Correct. And some may even give you a discount for having it.
Good. Okay, commercial transportation licensees. So there's now a requirement, it's actually already in the current emergency rules, but I will say I've had commercial transporters approved during this time period when this has allegedly been effective. It says that they're supposed to be inspected by OMMA before they're licensed. I've not had OMMA done, and I've had 3 or 4 transporters licensed since the emergency rules at the end of, I think it was June 28th, right? Since then, I've had 3 licensed and I've not had any inspections. But if you have any interest in getting a transportation license, just know that they do have the authority and they might inspect you prior to actually licensing you. OMMA's, this is not a good one. OMMA's review period is changing from 90 days to 90 business days, which is forever. Already known to take quite a while. So this is a big one as well. Okay, so being able to submit your licenses multiple times has always been sort of the status quo. If you do make a mistake, they're very good about letting you know what you did wrong and then giving you the ability to resubmit. After November 1st, that goes away. You get 1 try. They'll tell you everything that's wrong with your application. If you don't fix everything in that 1 try, the next time that you resubmit, they do not have the authority to deny your license. Meaning, take your $2,500 and you've got to start over, try again. So,
can I ask a question on that? Sure. The only reason why I'm asking this is when we reapplied for our license, we didn't have a 2-year Oklahoma residency, but we were actually before that time.
right.
And they kept denying us because I was from Florida, but I was there before that,
You mean
so
you
if I had one
satisfied
time,
the 5 years and 25, is that what you mean?
if there's a mistake by OMMA, is what I'm asking.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean.
there are, and there will continue to
They
be.
denied us. They kept denying
Yeah,
us. Even though our license was grandfathered, they kept denying
Yeah,
us.
for those of you that were at the summit, you might remember my question, I think more or less exactly along these lines, which was, why the hell am I getting incorrect legal opinions in the form of a rejection when I know? I'll give you a quick example. I submitted an application, got it rejected for a reason, legal reason that I disagreed with. I'm an attorney, not practicing. Resubmitted it, exact same application, approved. So I think that the likelihood of you getting a hard reject on these in the near term is probably lower because the people reviewing them are fallible, let's say.
I will say, so I actually discussed like that provision itself with Cameron Capps, who's general counsel right now at MMA. He kind of, I mean, he wouldn't put it in writing, because they hardly ever do, but he alluded to the fact that that is to prevent people who have been without their COCs. So there's this like sweet spot of people who did not have their COCs, and they were able to submit deficiently for like 12 months, and now they actually should be having to renew their license again.
Yeah.
They've actually been just resubmitting a deficient application for 12 months.
The intent
it's
is
really,
that.
yes, that is what the intent is for.
Yeah.
It's really not to punish somebody because you made a typo.
Because as you all know, while it's pending review, your license is still good, and then upon further rejection, it's another 30 days. This is intended to prevent gamesmanship in that way, not to screw you over if you didn't cross your T's.
Right. They are establishing a late renewal process, which I think is good. If you, for some reason, miss your 30-day, so right now you've got 30 days. If your license expires, you have 30 days after that to be able to submit your renewal. If you don't get it in within 30 days, the system locks you out. There is nothing that I can do or that OMA can do to save or reactivate or revive that license. They're now going to be giving you 90 days, and then the penalty there is just an additional $500. So you've got, if you screw up, if you miss that deadline, you just have to pay $500 and you can reinstate that license effectively. Decreases so transportation agents currently are about $100, and you have to be a 2-year resident to qualify for transporting for any business. Starting November 1st, you do not have to be a 2-year resident, you just have to have an Oklahoma driver's license, and it decreases from $100 each year to $25. Harvest batches for testing purposes are increased from 10 pounds to 15 for flour. If it's grown with the end goal for it to be processed, so if it's going, it's designated or earmarked to be concentrate, then that harvest batch is allowed to be up to 50 pounds. Yeah. So one thing that I will touch on a little bit later too within the new proposed emergency rules, if they do come to light as we've already seen them, the definition of strain changes. So I know right now we kind of always tell our people, hey, everything is a hybrid, because then if you've got 6 or 7 different strains, well, everything's a hybrid, and then we've got 10-pound harvest batches of hybrid, right? The definition of strain in the new emergency rules, it makes me believe that they've wised to that. They actually say, what you and I refer to as like OG Kush, that is a strain within now. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But yeah, so harvest batches, one positive is they've upped that.
And that'll pass, that's locked in.
November 1st. November 1st, yes. Let's see. The 1,000-foot proximity rule will apply to waste licensees. I don't know if any of you guys are waste licensees in here. What's up?
Sorry, I have a question regarding the strain. Would that, I guess, flow into conglomerate testing type situation?
What do you mean by conglomerate?
So-
Like homogenized for like fuels and
So,
stuff?
quote unquote, in the past, there has been this understanding that you can do a conglomerate test, right? So if there are 5 of the same strains, so, and this is where you're talking like, oh, it's sativa, it's hybrid, it's whatever. It's grown in the same conditions, it still falls within your 6-pound batch. You can then submit those 5 strains as one test. You only test those 5 specifically for, even though they're individual, like unique strains, so like just pineapple, yada yada, they're all hybrids. They're all have the same pesticide, the same microbes, basically grind it all together for your safety tests But then you test each individual one for potency and terms.
Right. So that, yes, that was my understanding. Now, I will say I've not had any of this clarified from OMA yet. Again, I believe based on the new definition of strain that it would apply to affect that exact situation. The only time you're going to be able to do like a conglomerate test would be the homogenized tests for pre-rolls and heat. And I'll touch on that a little bit later as well. Let's see. Okay, OMMA now has the ability, or November 1st, they'll have the ability to basically have what they call an administrative hearing. The administrative hearing is basically they've never really had a way to revoke your license previously. What they would do is just like refuse to renew you. Now they have an actual system in place where they can call an administrative hearing, they can tell you what you did wrong, and they can actually have the authority to revoke your license. A little bit more scary than that, they also have emergency powers to cease and desist a business, and if they hit you with an emergency cease and desist, your fine for non-compliance is $10,000 a day. And that does not have, they don't have to provide you any notice. So if they do, you know, in the rare instance that they have something on you that they believe is an emergency worthy situation, they will not give you notice, they will hit you with it, and then if you do not comply, it's $10,000 a day.
No judge.
Well, to kind of like contextualize that, this isn't something I would necessarily be afraid of. This is like willful illegality is the circumstance here. They're not going to come and cease and desist you and fine you if you are making a good faith effort to be in compliance.
Right. One thing, this is not a November 1st change. This is actually effective now based on the 628 emergency rules, but I've got a lot of questions about it recently, so I just wanted to touch on it. License transfer. So we're in a market right now where, you know, a lot of people are positioning themselves well enough that, you know, people are trying to come in and buy your companies. Is it possible to do a license transfer? Yes, from the OMMA end, you can now do a 100% license transfer. You do it via business license update. However, Kyle Heffler, who's in the general counsel department at OBN, has said they will not honor that. So while you can transfer your own license, it will effectively, once that's approved, invalidate their OBN, which would mean you're going to have to stop operations at least for 2 weeks or so until you can get a unique OBN. Yeah. So if you want to avoid business interruption entirely, the only way to do it is to have the buyer get their own OMA and their own OBN, and once they have those in place, rescind your licenses. So,
I'm guessing here, but I presume the reason for that is because part of, or the majority of what OBN does for their licensure is owner checks. Background checks, they'll look into the ownership, make sure you're resident, etc. Whenever you transfer a license, OBN wants you to redo that process.
But the details about address change, with that license, address change with that license.
Address change.
But they didn't mention anything about that. If you're going to buy a license and change that address.
Well, your license is tied to the address. So,
yeah.
Is there a way to do the OBN request prior to the change of ownership?
I'm sorry, say that.
Is there a way to do the OBN request prior to the ownership?
That's a good question.
So OBN, they've told me that they get their list once a week from OMA, and they treat that as their Bible, essentially. So whatever, if you submit and you get approved on Monday, then hopefully the list that gets printed out on Thursday is updated. But I have clients that, they get approved on Thursday morning, and the list has already been sent, and they've got to wait a full another week to even get their OBN process.
Well, that's a good question. We'll try to run that down. They're probably not even, to be frank, they're probably not even aware of there being an issue with that. Yeah. To be able to randomly do it, they probably not even contemplated it.
Okay, so then, do you want to talk about the new post rules? Or do you want to talk about
like I said, I can talk about them, but I can't rattle them off.
Sure. Okay.
I learned that I would be sitting on a panel a few hours ago, so it's been a minute since I've read them. But
okay. So the new proposed rules, so again, this is in large response to basically just trying to codify the House bill that we just went over, but a lot of it too is actual elaboration on some of those rule changes. So the first thing that I saw that I thought was very
this is the emergency rule. Okay.
So they're not active yet. I believe these are ones that are put into place.
Do y'all understand the difference between permanent and emergency rules and the dates around them? Okay, so permanent rules are what we just reviewed at the last OMA Advisory Board meeting last month. Those will go into public comment period on November 1st, because whenever they're going through a permanent rulemaking process, it has to follow like a whole bunch of procedural stuff. So November 1, the permanent rules will then be open for public comment. I would highly encourage each of you to comment with your feedback. You can do it by phone, email, private submission form, I presume, on the Senate's website. Or is it the, Bud, do you know where that would be? It's not open yet, it's November 1, but we'll keep you all posted. And then the emergency rules, also November 1, will actually go into effect. The difference being is that in an emergency bill or emergency rulemaking, there is, they go through it quicker and they don't have to follow as many formalities because it's considered to be a very pressing issue. So the emergency rules that Cambry's about to overview will be discussed at the next advisory board meeting, which is next Wednesday. You can view a live stream of it on the Senate Chamber website. Those will go into effect November 1. The permanent rules that she just finished reviewing will be open for public comment also November 1.
Okay, so the first thing that I saw that was noteworthy, if you've got co-location of licenses, so let's say you have a grow license and a processor license and they're at the same business premise, technically to transport, we've always been required to transport in a locked, sealed, labeled, you know, all of those various security requirements. They've eliminated that headache for people that are co-located. So as long as you've got the same license, business premise, you don't have to deal with any of that anymore. Yeah, right? It's a good one. Reprint of patient licenses or TA cards. So I've had somebody lose a TA card before. That's going to be $20 to reprint. Inventory manifest. So as part of your record keeping, you've got to keep these on site for 7 years now instead of 3. The COCs are not going to be required for renewal. So when you go through your COC process the first time, once you obtain that, you do not, at least for OMA's purpose, have to jump through that again. I will say, the city of OKC, the city of Norman, anybody who's currently getting money off of this, they will most likely still require you to pay them every year. So while OMA's not requiring it, just know that they're still going to want their money.
You're not going to have to upload it as a
right. You will not have to upload it, correct. Okay, let's see.
But to be clear, if you, like me, have a October 24th renewal, still required.
Right there.
Yep. Pretty neat.
Sorry.
Don't worry, I just got them 5 others.
Just so everybody knows, all the metric stuff is still going to be postponed until actual implementation. So while you will see metric language in the emergency rules, I mean, there's nothing we can do about it until it's actually implemented.
In the rules,
When is that expected to be?
I don't think anyone in this room knows.
I ask every time, and I'll ask again next Wednesday, and I won't get an answer. It's pending litigation, so as soon as certain people stop jamming the works up, then we'll be all right.
Waiting for dates.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're waiting to, I believe, set a hearing on the TRO, the injunction.
Okay, so this, I've not confirmed this one, but this is just like my sneaky suspicion, essentially. So they've added the ability to have a material change request through the compliant portal. So I think what it's going to do is take the place of the free business license update that you currently get. You know, you get one of those opportunities to edit your license essentially every 12-month period. They're now saying if it's a material change, so to me that would be a location change or an ownership update, they're going to want $500 to be able to do that now. So I've not confirmed that. That's just me reading into it. I don't know why they would put that in there if that's not what they're trying to do.
Entity type?
Entity type? Okay, so
You mean a
can you change
change of
from
entity
entity
type?
type?
Is that, or?
No.
That, I would consider that to be a material change, should it be covered?
It's disallowed entirely. So while you can do a sale or a transfer, if you have, let's say, an LLC, you're asking, can I sell my LLC to a C corp or to a sole proprietorship or to an individual? You cannot. They do not currently in the compliance system have the capability to switch entity type, no matter what you do. So if you're selling as an LLC, you want to sell to another LLC. If you're a C Corp, sell to a C Corp. Was that your question?
Yes. Easiest way to go about this, if you're selling your business, is by way of an asset purchase. That way you're not selling the business, no transferring the, you're selling the assets of the business. And the license would be one.
Okay, liquidation of products. So this has always been like kind of a confusing one. Previously, if you are liquidating your business, right? So you let your license lapse, you did not renew it in time. They gave you 30 days to be able to get rid of all your product. And that also at the time allowed you, if you're a grower, you could give your product or transfer or sell your product to another grower or processor or dispensary during that 30-day time period, right? That goes away November 1st. So after November 1st, if you are post-expiration date, the only legal transfer is to a waste license. You're getting real strict about that. So all licensees must have this information available. So as part of your records on premise, you have to have the square footage of your licensed premise, a diagram of your facility, the number and type of lights, if applicable, so if you're a grower, the number, type, and production capacity of the equipment located there if you are a processor, the name, addresses, and telephone numbers of employees or agents of the business, employment manuals, SOPs, and any other information the department deems reasonably necessary. So obviously that last one hasn't been clarified yet, but just going back to show you, they did codify that directly from the House bill that we went over earlier.
Digital is okay.
Digital is okay. Digital records are okay. Yes. Now I will say, in recent OBN inspection, I don't know why they're doing this, but they're cutting off the Wi-Fi. So if your electronic records are only accessible on something like the cloud, yeah, they're turning off the Wi-Fi during the inspection. Correct. So if you got it, have it on yeah. So just so you know, it can't be on the cloud. It needs to be like it has to folder under
I spun about 3 months ago, and I think we're one of the first facilities that they came through in Pulse area. And they wanted specifically hard, they want to see like actual paper.
Yeah.
You know, I had everything back.
Control P.
Right.
I had everything.
I'd say Control P.
Control P.
Like print.
I'd just print one copy of everything.
If you're doing, you know, large, you know,
Yes.
it's a lot of paper, but at one point, you just said right now that digital copies are okay.
Yes, they are. So I will say, his experience is not uncommon. A lot of the time, the people that are coming out to actually do the inspections, they are learning too. So they might, yeah. So I'll tell you right now, that was a total, they exceeded their authority in making you have a printed out copy. When they actually, have you gotten your final report, if you will, your written letter from them? Yeah, so did you get any sort of like actual infraction for not having it printed?
I mean, I had like 28 things.
Okay, well, that should not have been a ding. If that was a ding,
Well, no,
take it up on your
she went in, she clearly saw that our facility was running very, you know, we moved out from Los Angeles and we've been following protocol for the past 15 years.
Right.
And,
I wouldn't be worried about our.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, but we, and after that moment, we had this now file cabinets, that we had a lot of file cabinets.
Right.
I mean, it's a good like CYA, but I think Camry's right that specific inspector probably didn't know what they were doing in that requirement. It's impossible to me that in 2021 they require a hard copy.
Exactly, I mean, yeah, that's my.
But to her earlier point, I would have a data backup of all of your internal docs on like a desktop or a server that's accessible without Wi-Fi.
Right. Okay, so this is just a clarification of like the Paracon deli style that I talked about earlier. So you can't, so the max is no more than 3 grams in separate display cases, jars, or other containers. Each display case must have a label containing the following information: licensing name, that proves medical marijuana, strain name, batch number, and the following statement: sample, not for retail sale. So if you're going to be having deli style, you know, where you can actually pass it over and let the potential client or customer smell it, hopefully not touch it, but you know, just inspect it, if you will, then it has to follow all of those regulations. Do we go right to the thing? Okay, sure, yeah. We'll use it. Here, I'll come. Yes, I will send it. Okay, so, the total displays can be no more than 3 grams.
Okay.
Each display case or jar must be labeled with the following info: licensee name that grew the product, the strain name, the batch number, and the statement, quote, sample, not for retail sale.
And none of the no ordinary, red THC.
That, it's not actually being sold, so, yes, those are point of sale requirements. One small labeling clarification, so I have a couple of clients that just use me for like, verifying that their labeling is correct. So previously it said terpenoid potency. Now on November 1st, it will say specifically terpenoid type and concentration. So you can't just say terpenoids, this percentage, you have to actually list each individual terpenoid and its potency.
This is one that will likely change. There was a good amount of conversation at the last advisory board meeting about exactly this. The issue I raised was, number one, some labs report differently than others. Some do it by like milligram content or percentage content, and to include the entire COA on a placard or a sample is ridiculous. So they more or less agreed. Many of these rules in that lead lab guy that was there is very knowledgeable. These rules their intent with them is to prevent shady shit they've been seeing. So our recommendations, and believe me, I will have some for Wednesday's meeting, are intended to give them context. What does this look like in practice? Is this actually realistic? And I'm going to be hammering on that.
What time is that?
9. Hold on.
You can do the yellow stuff with these stuff.
You can't, essentially they're trying to prevent you from being able, you can't take your big, massive jar and let them smell it and touch it. You can't do
I have
that.
it sitting on the cabinet, and I have a jar of weed sitting on the cabinet. What's the difference between me opening that jar and opening this jar?
You are no longer allowed to open that second jar.
Yeah.
You cannot.
Practically, no. Legally, a lot.
Okay, I didn't know, okay.
Yeah, 9 a.m., Lincoln room 230 at the cabinet.
I'm sorry, say that
There's a
again.
QR code that links to info, is that considered on the label?
No.
I'm gonna push for that.
Yeah, it should be.
I'm gonna, on Wednesday, I will force a lot of conversation around this part.
And then I know we're kind of running short on time. I just have 2 last ones that I feel like are pretty important. So the testing for pre-rolls, so that's been like a huge question. What the hell do we do? How do we test it? The pre-rolls, so if you're using multiple harvest batches to assemble your pre-rolls, you are allowed to do a homogenized test so long as it does not exceed 15 pounds. But if it's multiple harvest batches, it does have to be retested for a full panel test. All of them. Yes, we already have those tests. If you already have harvest batch tests, say you use 5 harvest batches, right? If you already have the original harvest batch test, they are irrelevant now. You can homogenize, and then you have to have its own full panel test for that 15 pounds of pre-roll material in the product. If it all originated from the same harvest batch, then you only have to retest again for heavy metals, filth, contaminants, and hoods. Does that make sense? If it's the same harvest batch originally, yes. Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, you're gonna need to get a retest on your filler for pre-rolls.
And then the last thing, so keef, all keef testing must be done in 15-pound homogenized batches. So full panel on keef, yep. So keef, if you're collecting it from various different harvest batches, or even the same harvest batch, the keef individually has to be tested in 15-pound homogenized batches.
And no, I don't know why they've gone into explicit detail to keep.
What about,
Distillate. I want to say 4 liters. I don't think I have that one down because I don't think it has that long. I'm pretty sure it's 4 liters. 4 liters is the production batch size, right?
Don't they spell that out in the permit?
Maybe. If you want to email one of us, I can get you like the exact dates.
And I'll give you all my contacts. Any other questions?
Yeah. All right.
All right, thank you guys.
If you all want to reach out to us, my email is Blake, BLAKE, at thepeakok.com, THEPEAKOK.com.
Thank you both. So thank you, Blake and Camry. Real quick, I forgot to do a shout out to a couple of people. The crew workspace comped our use of this room tonight, so cheers to them. And then Primal Cannabis paid for the half keg of Coors Light, which is plenty of And then I also forgot, Cassie Doolittle over here with Fireleaf. They were sponsored our summit. So thank you guys. Stick around. Mingle. Half of these events are about talking to one another and networking. So do that. Enjoy it. Get engaged. Encourage others to get engaged. So thank you all.